Look down at your hand for a second. Just hold it up in front of your face. Looks pretty still, right? Calm, steady, doing nothing in particular. But underneath that skin, right now, there's a pump about the size of your fist that has been firing nonstop since about 3 weeks after you were conceived. It has never taken a coffee break. It has never had a day off. And here's the strange part: this pump is so good at its job, so quietly efficient, that it can be running into serious trouble for years and you would feel almost nothing. No alarm bells, no flashing lights, just a slow, invisible drift toward a problem that most tests, even expensive ones, can completely miss. So today we're going to open up that pump. Not with a scalpel, but with the same kind of thinking a plumber, an electrician, and a furnace repair guy would use if they all teamed up to look at the strangest, most beautiful machine they'd ever seen. Because that's really what your heart is. It's a machine. A wet, warm, biological machine built from pipes, wires, and a tiny furnace. And once you see it that way, a warning sign that doesn't show up on any test suddenly makes perfect sense. Let's start with the pipes, because pipes are something everyone understands. Picture your plumbing at home. Water comes in under pressure, travels through pipes of different sizes, and eventually trickles out of a faucet. Your blood vessels work on the exact same principle, except the water is blood and the pump pushing it is your heart. Every time your heart beats, it's not just squeezing. It's creating a pressure wave, like a hand squeezing a tube of toothpaste. That wave travels all the way out to your fingertips and back. In fact, right now, press 2 fingers gently against your wrist. Feel that little thump. That's the pressure wave arriving. And here's your first golden number. That wave takes roughly 0.1 to 0.2 seconds to travel from your heart to your wrist. 1/10 of a second. That's how fast the water hammer of your pulse moves through your plumbing. You can literally feel the speed of your own circulation with 2 fingers and a watch. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Pipes, over time, can get narrower. Maybe from mineral buildup in your home plumbing, or in your body's case, from a slow accumulation of fatty material along the inner walls of your arteries. This is the part everyone's heard of. Cholesterol, plaque, all that. But here's the twist that most people don't think about. A pipe can lose up to 70% of its internal width before you notice any drop in water pressure at the faucet. Why? Because the pump, your heart, is incredibly good at compensating. It just pushes a little harder. It's like a furnace quietly cranking up the dial to keep the house warm, even though one of the air ducts is half blocked. You feel nothing. The house stays warm. But the furnace is working overtime, and one day that overworked system hits its limit. This is the bridge to our next idea. Your heart isn't just a pump, it's also a furnace. Every cell in your body is running a tiny, slow-burning fire, what scientists call metabolism. It's the same basic chemistry as a candle flame, just running incredibly slowly and incredibly controlled, using sugar and oxygen as fuel instead of wax and wick. And your heart muscle. It's one of the hungriest fires in your entire body. Pound for pound, your heart muscle burns through more fuel, minute by minute, than almost any other tissue you have. Which means it needs a constant, uninterrupted delivery of fuel and oxygen through its own tiny private pipes. The coronary arteries. Tiny tubes, about the width of a strand of spaghetti, wrapping around the heart muscle like a crown. That's literally where the word coronary comes from. Crown-shaped. And here's the thing about a fire that's burning that hot, that fast, with that little wiggle room. If you choke off even a small part of its fuel supply, even temporarily, it doesn't always scream about it. Sometimes it just quietly struggles. And that quiet struggle is exactly the warning sign that doesn't show up on standard tests. Let's talk about the wiring now, because this is where things get genuinely mind-blowing. Your heart doesn't beat because some signal comes down from your brain every single time. It has its own built-in electrical generator, a tiny cluster of cells that spontaneously fire an electrical pulse, all on their own, like a self-winding clock. This pulse then travels through the heart muscle along special wires, pathways of tissue that conduct electricity faster than the muscle around them. Almost exactly like the difference between an insulated copper wire and the metal frame of your house. The signal needs to travel through these wires in a very specific order, hitting the right muscle at the right millisecond so that the heart squeezes in a smooth wave-like motion. Top chambers first, then bottom chambers, rather than just twitching all at once like a startled muscle spasm. Here's your next golden number. This entire electrical sequence, from the first spark to the final squeeze takes about 0.8 seconds at a resting heart rate of around 75 beats per minute. Less than a second for your heart to generate electricity, route it through its wiring, and produce a coordinated mechanical squeeze that pushes blood to every corner of your body, your toes, your brain, your fingertips. And it repeats that perfectly about 100,000 times a day. That's roughly the number of times you'd have to flip a light switch if you wanted to do it once every second, all day and all night, for over a day straight. Except your heart does this every single day of your life without you ever thinking about it. Now here's where the pipes and the wires and the furnace all come together into one story. The story of that hidden warning sign. Imagine one of those tiny crown-shaped pipes feeding the heart muscle starts to narrow. Not completely blocked, just narrowed. Most of the time, when you're resting, sitting on the couch, the heart doesn't need much fuel. The narrowed pipe can still squeeze enough blood through to keep that little patch of muscle happy. No symptoms. Nothing on a resting test. Everything looks calm and normal, just like the house staying warm even with a partially blocked duct. But now imagine you climb a flight of stairs, or you're shoveling snow, or you're in an argument and your heart rate spikes with adrenaline. Suddenly, that patch of heart muscle needs a lot more fuel, right now, to keep up with the increased workload. But the narrowed pipe can't deliver it. For a brief window, sometimes just 30 seconds, sometimes a couple of minutes, that little patch of heart muscle is running on a fuel deficit. It's like a fire that suddenly isn't getting enough oxygen fed to it. It doesn't go out, but it sputters. And what does a sputtering fire in your heart feel like? This is the crucial part. It often doesn't feel like the dramatic clutch, your chest collapse on the floor scene you see in movies. Sometimes it feels like nothing dramatic at all. A strange heaviness in the chest that goes away when you sit down. An unusual tiredness climbing the same stairs you've climbed 1,000 times. A weird ache in the jaw or down the left arm during exertion that quietly disappears within minutes of resting. Shortness of breath that feels off compared to normal exertion. These are what doctors call warning symptoms that occur only under load. And here's the key. They often vanish completely by the time you're sitting in a doctor's office, lying calmly on an exam table, hooked up to a resting heart monitor. A resting electrocardiogram, the standard heart test, is essentially listening to your heart's electrical wiring while the furnace is idling. If the narrowed pipe only causes a fuel shortage during physical exertion, and you're lying still and relaxed during the test, the wiring looks completely normal. The test is, in a very real sense, asking the wrong question at the wrong moment. It's like trying to find out if your car's brakes squeal at high speed by testing them in a parking lot at 2 miles an hour. Everything checks out. The problem only shows up under load, under stress, under exertion, under exactly the conditions the test doesn't replicate. This is why doctors sometimes use what's called a stress test, deliberately making your heart's furnace work harder, usually by having you walk or run on a treadmill while hooked up to monitors, specifically to try to catch that sputtering fire in the act. But even stress tests aren't perfect, and many people experience this warning sign in real life. During a stressful moment, during a workout, during shoveling snow in the cold, and then write it off because the doctor said my heart looked fine. Here's another golden number for you, one you can genuinely use in your own life. Pay attention to symptoms that show up specifically during exertion and specifically go away within about 5 to 10 minutes of rest. That pattern, exertion brings it on, rest makes it fade, is one of the most important signals your body can send you, and it is precisely the signal that a calm, resting test is structurally unable to detect. It's not that doctors are missing something obvious. It's that the test and the symptom are looking at two completely different versions of your heart. One idling, one under load, and only one of those versions is telling the real story. Now let's zoom out, way out, because here's where this all gets beautiful. That tiny electrical spark that fires in your heart, generating its own rhythm out of nothing. It runs on the same basic principle as a battery, a difference in electrical charge across a membrane built from charged particles called ions moving in and out of cells. That's the same fundamental physics that powers a lightning bolt, just on an almost unimaginably smaller and gentler scale. The fire, burning in every one of your cells, breaking down sugar with oxygen to release energy. That's the same chemical reaction, releasing the same kind of energy that powers the sun, just happening at body temperature instead of millions of degrees, slowed down and tamed by billions of years of evolution into something your cells can use without melting. Even the rhythmic pulse you felt in your wrist earlier, that wave traveling outward and echoing back, follows the same wave mechanics that govern sound moving through air, or ripples moving across a pond, or light moving through space. You are not separate from the universe's biggest laws. You are those laws, miniaturized, looped, and tucked neatly inside your ribcage. The same physics that lights stars is, right now, quietly lighting the tiny furnace in your heart muscle. The same electrical principles that crackle across a thunderstorm are, right now, sparking the rhythm that's kept your heart beating since before you were born. And the same fluid dynamics that govern rivers and ocean currents are, right now, carrying blood through pipes thinner than spaghetti, all the way out to the tips of your fingers and back in about 1/10 of a second. So the next time you climb a flight of stairs and feel a little more winded than you expected, or feel a strange tightness that fades once you sit down, don't just shrug it off as getting older or out of shape. That feeling might be your body's furnace, your pipes, and your wiring all working together to send you a message that no resting test in the world can pick up. You are walking around with one of the most elegant machines ever built, one that links the chemistry of stars to the beat in your chest, and sometimes all it's asking for is 5 minutes of your attention.